and streaming live in HD worldwide at foxbangor.com. More people choose Good Morning Maine.
Hello, everyone. Today on Good Morning Maine, Governor Mills made the decision to suspend her campaign for U.S. Senate. We'll hear what her opponent Graham Plattner had to say coming up.
Plus, a teenager charged in connection with the murder of a paddleboarder last summer is now considered competent to stand trial.
And the VZ Community Schools robotics team travels to Houston, Texas to compete on a national stage.
Good morning and welcome to Good Morning Maine. I'm Janessa Bishop.
And I'm Craig Colson. Thank you for joining us. Happy Friday, everyone. Finally making it through another work week.
Yes.
We'll have those stories and more coming up, but first a check of that forecast. Not great news in that department as we head into the weekend. Looks like today, though, will be a nice day once we get through a few rain showers this morning. We'll see some sunshine later on, and then just kind of rain on and off throughout the weekend.
Yeah, to this morning, too, it was foggy on my way in. I'm not sure about you, but just maybe take it a little easy. We'll turn things over to meteorologist Devin Biggs.
And thank you very much, Craig and Janessa. Happy Friday. Your first weather forecast brought to you by Clifton General Store. Start your morning right at Clifton General Store. Fresh coffee and hot breakfast. Family owned and operated. Alrighty, here we go. This morning we have a small craft advisory that will be expiring along the coast as wave heights will begin to back off slowly but surely. And the rain showers will begin to back off as we head throughout the morning period as well. The clouds will begin to back off throughout the morning period too. As we do move forward, there's that system right there that is tracking off towards the north and east, and that will take the rain with it too. And overall, it will be a nice day. A little bit of a breeze that we'll need to watch out for as well. Now here's Futurecast right here, taking the clouds with it, and we will be under a partly cloudy sky, and the clouds really clearing out overnight. Our next system on the way as we head towards your Saturday, some rain to the south, a little bit of snow farther off towards the north. As for the wind, reaching up to about 15 to 25 miles per hour today, backing off later on tonight. And as we head towards tomorrow, a little bit of some gusty winds. Overall, nothing too ridiculous. The hourly forecast moving forward, becoming partly cloudy today, with temperatures reaching up into the upper 50s to lower 60s. Your full 5-day forecast is coming up. Craig and Janessa.
Thank you, Devin. We'll see you a little later on. Maine's congressional races are slated to be some of, if not the most watched elections in the nation. And yesterday, a big shakeup in Maine politics as Governor Janet Mills announced she is suspending her U.S. Senate campaign. Our Doug Banks has those details and reactions to the big surprising announcement.
Governor Janet Mills made the decision to suspend her U.S. Senate campaign public just before 9 Thursday morning, citing a lack of financial resources. She said in part, quote, "While I have the drive and passion, commitment and experience, and above all else the fight to continue on, I very simply do not have the one thing that political campaigns unfortunately require today, the financial resources. That is why I have made the incredibly difficult decision to suspend my campaign for the United States Senate," end quote. It's a move that caused a ripple effect through Maine's political landscape on Thursday, especially since we're just weeks away from the Democratic primary. First, Senator Susan Collins said, quote, "I am sure this was a difficult decision for Governor Mills, and I thank her for her decades of service to the people of Maine," end quote. Next, one of her direct opponents on the Democratic ticket, Graham Plattner. A press conference Thursday morning at the Governor Hill Mansion in Augusta brought lawmakers from across Maine to publicly endorse his campaign. It was held only a couple hours after Mills' campaign suspension was made public. Here's what he had to say about the current governor.
Governor Mills has dedicated her career to this beautiful state. We're all eternally grateful for her service to the state of Maine as governor and her lifelong career serving Mainers as Attorney General, as District Attorney, and in the legislature. We both got into this race because we knew how critical it is to defeat Susan Collins. And her decision today reflects a commitment to that project. I look forward to working closely with her between now and November to do just that, to defeat Susan Collins and turn this seat blue again.
Are you hoping to get Governor Mills' endorsement, and what would that mean?
I reached out to the governor this morning, giving her my thanks for her decades of service to this state. I'm very much looking forward to working with her closely as we move forward.
Next, two of Maine's political parties issued statements about Mills' campaign. Maine Democratic Party Executive Director Devon Murphy-Anderson made the following statement, saying in part, "The Maine Democratic Party is neutral in primaries and will be proud to support our Democratic nominee for U.S. Senate, along with our nominees in races up and down the ballot," end quote. Meanwhile, the Maine Republican Party voicing strong opposition to Plattner, saying in part, "Mainers can't afford to send a radical, out-of-control extremist like Plattner to D.C., but that's exactly whom Maine Democrats have on their slate this election," end quote. We also spoke with political experts and University of Maine Political Science Chair Mark Brewer about Mills' decision to suspend her campaign. While the announcement came as a surprise, he says there have been indications over the past few weeks suggesting this might happen. He highlighted her lack of on-air presence over the last few weeks, the lack of donations coming in from outside groups, and Mills consistently trailing in the polls.
I think it's probably a combination of the lack of resources, but also probably a realization on her part that, she just didn't see a path to victory anymore.
A common question in politics when someone suspends their campaign is who will they endorse? This is a statement sent to us by a spokesperson for Jenna Mills on Thursday. It reads, quote, "Governor Mills has never voted for Susan Collins, and she will not do so in this election either. As Maine's governor, she will continue to support Democratic candidates across Maine, and she will continue to hear and watch how Graham Plattner works to earn the support of Maine voters, just as she will keep a close eye on Maine's congressional and gubernatorial primaries as well." In studio, Doug Banks, ABC 7 and Fox 22 News.
Meanwhile, school districts all over the state are working to solidify their fiscal year 2027 budgets, and RSU 22 is no different. However, the district is facing multiple challenges, causing a tight financial squeeze that they say is affecting most stakeholders. Our Callie Warren explains.
And we're just trying to get what we can for our students with the understanding that we're trying to also help everyone else within the communities and not increase that too much for them, because we understand they're going through some hard times as well.
Budgeting is a balancing act for the RSU 22 school board, but the challenges that they're facing are felt across the state. Between rising costs, state mandates, and attempting to keep the taxpayer burden low, those in the district are trying to piece together a complicated puzzle.
Everyone's costs are going up, and we're just trying to do our best. So, yes, we're all in that situation together.
Superintendent Raymond says that included in the proposed $40.8 million budget is a 30% increase for propane and a 30% increase for gas and transportation costs due to rising oil prices. Additionally, the district must allocate $50,000 to prepare for the state-mandated personal devices ban in case they need to provide school-issued computers to students currently using personal laptops. They also have to allocate for a state-mandated teacher salary increase.
Considering the economy right now and considering what local communities are going through, I think our administration did a really nice job with preparing this budget.
The district has also had to cut positions due to lower enrollment numbers, an issue communities have seen across the state.
Well, we've had a significant decline in enrollment over the years, and so we're reducing some employees.
More budget meetings for the district are on the horizon. Visit rsu22.us to learn more. In Hamden, Callie Warren, ABC 7 and Fox 22 News.
Well, on Thursday, Senator Angus King questioned Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth and Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff J. Daniel Kane. King pressed for answers during the annual hearing on the Department of Defense budget request for fiscal year 2027 and future years' defense program. The hearing focused largely on the war in Iran. However, Senator King, who is a senior member of the Senate Armed Services Committee, questioned the way the $1.5 trillion budget was constructed. King went back and forth with Hegseth over his concerns about decreased efforts to provide funding for Ukraine.
I think the American people should understand that we've stepped back, in fact, stepped back to the point of abandoning.
This is a war that never would have happened under President Trump, and he supports ending it through a deal, and he's pursued that.
So far, it hasn't happened.
Well, as King pressed the issue, Hegseth held firmly to his argument that other European countries should be stepping up and shouldering the burden of funding Ukraine.
Meanwhile, a Waterville man has been sentenced to 35 years in prison for murdering his roommate. Thomas Lowry was arrested in 2024 for the stabbing death of Charles Bello. 2 months ago, Lowry entered an Alford guilty plea, which allowed him to maintain his innocence while also acknowledging that the state had enough evidence to convict him. Lowry must also pay more than $4,000 in restitution as part of his sentence.
A teenager charged in connection with the murder of a female paddleboarder last summer has been found competent to stand trial. According to the Midcoast Villager, 18-year-old Devin Young was found competent to stand trial by a state judge, making it more likely that he'll be tried as an adult for the murder of Sunshine Sonny Stewart last year in Union. The details of the findings and the judge's ruling are under seal at this time, as are many of the records in the case, since Young was only 17 at the time of Stewart's murder. Villager's report says the next step will be a hearing to determine whether the case, in fact, is transferred to an adult court. If that happens, the case is then presented to a grand jury for a possible indictment. Should all of that occur, a trial would then be scheduled.
In other news, the family of the woman killed in a Skowhegan fire this week is asking for the public's help as they try to pick up the pieces amidst their grief. The granddaughter of the woman killed in the fire has created a GoFundMe page. According to that page, the family was already dealing with grief due to the loss of her mother's husband just 10 months prior to the fire. Now they are dealing with even more unthinkable loss with the death of her grandmother and their beloved family dog, who also died in the fire. The granddaughter says that her mother lives on a fixed income and they need help with motel fees, finding stable housing, food, clothing, and other essentials. They also need help paying for funeral services. She says any donation, no matter how small, is welcome. We have a link to that on our website at foxbangor.com.
On Thursday, Republican gubernatorial candidate Jonathan Bush gathered with supporters at Dysarts to highlight his focus on health care and how he says the government has actually made it more difficult to deliver affordable health care to Maine people. He said under Governor Mills, the Maine Care program has more than doubled in size and spending, and that growth, he says, has forced Maine providers to accept Maine Care reimbursements far below the cost of care. He says it's then forced providers to raise the cost of care for others to make up for it. He also said many people currently on Maine Care should be transitioned to the commercial market, and the ranks of those who run the program should be trimmed.
The administration of Maine Care needs to be delegated to professionals who do this and not to bureaucrats. 3,668 state workers in Augusta do nothing but work for the DHHS.
Well, the time now is 6:12. Coming up next on Good Morning Maine, the University of Maine hosted their early college day, giving high school students the opportunity to explore career paths.
We'll have that story, but first another look at that forecast. It looks like a partly cloudy day ahead today with highs near 60 degrees. Mostly clear tonight with lows dropping down to around freezing. Mostly cloudy with rain showers on the way for Saturday. Highs around 53. We'll be right back.
Do you take propane tank?
Anything goes.
How about cardboard?
Anything goes.
How about old rug?
Yeah, anything goes.
So this too?
Furniture removal, basements, garages, attics, hoarder houses. It doesn't matter here at Anything Goes Junk Removal. Anything goes. Well, almost anything.
When you combine a fast-paced word game,
4 of them make $1.
Hoarders, hosted by Leah Remini.
What is swing?
Did you just say what is?
Yes,
you just realized you're not on Jeopardy. Okay.
You've got a recipe for fun.
I got a few dances, Leah. I like to do this guy here. At weddings, I kill it.
You do not kill nothing with that.
People puzzling.
Weekdays at 10 on ABC 7.
An update update now to a story we recently brought you about the Vesey Community School robotics team who had punched their ticket to a national competition in Houston, Texas. The team landed in Houston this week and is getting ready to go. They got to enter the venue and start their practicing and preparations for that competition, but it all hasn't been business. They've been taking in some of the sights as well. They had the thrilling opportunity to tour NASA's facilities in Houston, a dream come true for any robotics enthusiast. And today, official competition matches begin. We wish them the very best of luck.
Good luck to them. We'll have to keep following
Yes.
them. All right, well, a program that allows high school students to start taking college courses early at UMaine hosted students from all around the state on Thursday in the hopes of drawing them to the university. This was the first ever early college day at UMaine. The day included panels on student life, as well as lots of information on the multiple areas of study. There were also campus tours. Different from a general campus visit, this day allows students who attended to specifically explore the courses of study that they're interested in.
We've divided them by areas of interest within the different colleges here on campus. Some of them we've broken down further because they're pretty large groups, and but they've all been able to express what their interest level is, even if they're unsure.
The day even included tours of specialized facilities like labs. And if you'd like more information on the early college program yourself, you can head to umaine.edu/early college.
That's pretty neat.
Yeah.
Well, the time now is 6:16. After the break, today marks a significant deadline on the war in Iran. We'll have more on the War Powers Act coming up.
Plus, we got an inside look on how the conditions are inside the current Penobscot County Jail. Those stories and more straight ahead on Good Morning Maine.
Find your flavor at Black Sheep Restaurant in Sullivan. Breakfast so good on Tuesdays, even the toast gets a standing ovation. Wednesday to Saturday, we serve breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Sundays, we brunch 9 to 1. Black Sheep Restaurant, where the food is bold and the sheep are only slightly judgmental.
Huckleberry's Card and Gift has a wide selection of puzzles for the entire family. Local items, including raised mustard and scone mix from the Scone Goddess, jewelry, town signs, coffee mugs, and much more. Located in front of the Brewer City Hall.
Would Miranda Priestley approve of your wardrobe? Well, this morning, if you want to own the best style and looks from the Devil Wears Prada 2 for less, and we mean a lot less than you think, then you gotta watch GMA. Plus, Angela Bassett's here, live on Good Morning America.
As I started walking towards her, she was walking towards me. And then I hit her.
She hit me so hard, I saw stars.
Fighting over a man behind bars.
What is he serving jail time for?
Strangulation in the 3rd degree, domestic violence, stalking.
And his crimes.
And how much time is he serving?
6 years, thankfully.
Hit close to home.
And who was the victim?
I am.
Next, Judge Judy.
Friday at 5 on ABC 7.
Find your flavor at Black Sheep Restaurant in Sullivan. Breakfast so good on Tuesdays, even the toast gets a standing ovation. Wednesday to Saturday, we serve breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Sundays, we brunch 9 to 1. Black Sheep Restaurant, where the food is bold and the sheep are only slightly judgmental.
Welcome back, everyone. For years, Penobscot County jail officials have warned that the facility is being pushed to its limits.
Now they say overcrowding in an outdated building are putting daily operations under real strain. Our Alex Schley got an inside look at just how intense conditions have become.
In 24 hours, the Penobscot County Jail processed more than 15 new individuals from 6 different agencies.
One being charged as a fugitive from justice, others with drug charges, some with assault charges.
Sheriff Troy Morton says that kind of volume is business as usual for the Bangor-based facility.
We are forced with dealing with multiple situations. We've often been called the emergency room to the criminal justice system.
Just to give you an idea of how limited the jail is on space, earlier today when I was taking a tour, we stopped in the intake room. In addition to myself and Sheriff Morton, there was also a man receiving medical attention, a woman in crisis who I was told was not able to be with the general population, a handful of law enforcement officers, and a handyman on a ladder. Now, this was all happening in an area just about the size of a waiting room.
The facility doesn't have those temporary housing areas. We're forced to keep them in with new admissions.
Officials say scenes like that are not rare.
It is a constant effort to keep this building running, keep folks that are in here, whether they're incarcerated individuals, the staff, or even our vendors, safe inside this correctional facility.
In the meantime, Sheriff Morton says officials still need to take care of the day-to-day operations.
And when that occurs, the rest of the facility still needs to operate. We're providing programming, recreation, providing food, making sure medical and mental health services are being provided to the other individuals that are incarcerated inside our facility.
Staff says the limitations of the current facility make an already demanding job even more challenging. Individuals who had previously been incarcerated at the Penobscot County Jail but did not want to be on camera told ABC7 Fox 22 that they did not have a problem with the conditions of the facility, noting that they were similar to others in the area. In Bangor, Alex Schley for ABC7 and Fox 22 News.
Boy, they've been talking about needing a new jail since I started in like 1985.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming.
They had the big renovation and the addition put on years ago, but they've outgrown it, and I think we're all very familiar with the problems there. It's just a matter of coming up with the money and the place and all that.
Definitely,
to get
lots
a new jail.
of planning involved. Now let's get a full look at our forecast with meteorologist Devin Biggs.
Alrighty, Craig and Janessa, thank you very much. Your full weather forecast brought to you by Clifton General Store. Start your morning right at Clifton General Store. Fresh coffee and hot breakfast. Family owned and operated. Alrighty, here we go this morning. A small craft advisory will be expiring along the coast as we watch for wave heights that will be backing off. For now, they're still a little bit active at around 5 feet. So overall, we're seeing some improvement with contours starting to decrease to the north and east. Farther out towards sea, still active at around 6 to 8 feet. So that's courtesy of that system that's moving to the north and east. Meanwhile, on land, we still have some rain showers developing this morning. This is all tracking off to the north and east with that area low pressure that will be moving away. So we are going to be seeing some improvement today as the sky becomes partly cloudy and temperatures warm up into the lower 60s. So it's another system off toward the west that will move in our direction. Now will give us some more rain showers as we head towards tomorrow. So let's break this all down with Futurecast. So clouds breaking up today. We'll call it partly cloudy with the sun coming out. Temperatures making it into the lower 60s. Mostly clear tonight. Temperatures falling. For tomorrow, clouds move in. Rain showers to the south. Some snow possible across the northern parts of the state. We'll keep that rain shower action going through most of Saturday. And then even by Saturday night, still some on and off rain showers. And that even continues as we head towards our Sunday. So I'm going to keep the rainfall forecast going even as we head through Tuesday. And some decent rainfall at that, around 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch possible before this all begins to back off. So new drought monitor came out and some improvement in some spots, and it got worse in a few others too. So it's a mixed bag. So overall, great to see some improvement, but we definitely don't want it to get worse in other areas either. So for today, partly cloudy and breezy, low 60s for the high, northwest wind at about 20 miles per hour. Overnight, mostly clear, low 30s for the overnight low, and the wind overall looking nice and calm. And then for tomorrow, mostly cloudy, rain showers with highs in the low 50s, and that south wind getting up to around 20 miles per hour. And let's check out your extended forecast. We have rain likely Sunday with highs in the mid 40s. Partly cloudy, a chance for rain showers Monday, back in the low 60s for the high. Upper 60s Tuesday, chance for showers and thunderstorms.
Here at Twin City Tire and Service, you will be working with industry professionals. We have ASE certified master technicians and certified tire and lube technicians. If we need your vehicle for a duration of time, we offer a complimentary shuttle service and can even offer a loaner vehicle. Being a client at Twin City Tire and Service means that we will treat you right. This includes a 3-year, 36,000-mile warranty on mechanical repairs. We also provide you with 1 year of complimentary roadside assistance. Come see us today at Twin City Tire and Service in Brewer.
Pat's Pizza in Holden is not just a restaurant that serves delicious food and pizza. They also have an adjacent party and event room. Consider having your birthday or office party at Pat's Pizza. They have indoor golf, a pro shop, and a beautiful 9-hole golf course open for the season. Pat's Pizza, Holden.
Webb's RV Center has a 4-acre lot with over 75 previously owned campers all on sale, plus another 4 acres of new RVs and motorhomes. Webb's RV will take anything in trade. You can buy a camper anywhere, but be sure to buy your next camper at your local neighbor. A website can't service your RV, but Webb's RV will, and they have the biggest service department in the state of Maine to help you enjoy your RV or motorhome.
So come on down, neighbor. The coffee pot's on and the pencil is sharp.
Who is the real Graham Plattner? He calls rural Mainers stupid and racist. Plattner says some Maine lobstermen are drug-addicted pieces of shit. He blames Maine's women for getting raped because he says they get up drunk. Graham Plattner even bragged about a Nazi tattoo on his chest. He calls it eminently reasonable. That's the real Graham Plattner. To be continued. Pine Tree Results Pack is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Only at Glen Burn Landscape and Supply Company, Outer Broadway, Glen Burn, and at glenburnlandscape.com.
You're watching ABC 7 Bangor.
Today marks 60 days since the start of the war with Iran. The War Powers Act says that Congress must authorize an extension beyond that deadline, but the Trump administration has a different take. ABC's Lionel Moyes reports.
It was 2 months ago, on February 28th, that U.S. and Israeli forces launched massive strikes on Iran, and today marks a significant deadline. Under the 1973 War Powers Act, President Trump must either wind down the war or receive congressional approval to continue. But Congress is on recess until May 11th.
All right, the hearing is in order.
And now, Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth says there's no deadline to meet at all.
We are in a ceasefire right now, which our understanding means the 60-day clock pauses or stops in a ceasefire. You're not in. Yeah. It's our understanding, just so you know.
Okay, well, I do not believe the statute would support that.
Republicans yesterday blocked a 6th attempt from Senate Democrats to limit President Trump's authority to wage war on Iran, but Republican Senator Susan Collins joined with Democrats, writing that deadline is not a suggestion, it is a requirement. 13 American troops have been killed in the war, more than 400 wounded, the Pentagon putting the price tag at $25 billion and climbing, but the president dismissing concerns.
I actually think it's very popular, what I'm doing. I can tell you worldwide, the world is thanking me.
Trump again claiming Iran wants a deal.
They want to make a deal badly. We have a problem because nobody knows for sure who the leaders are.
But Tehran not backing down, vowing to maintain its tight grip on the strait. Iran's Revolutionary Guard warning of, quote, long and painful strikes on U.S. regional positions if attacked again. No Congress has ever used the War Powers Resolution to force the executive branch to end hostilities. Lionel Moyes, ABC News, New York.
Well, now to the soaring gasoline prices around the country, driven up by the war with Iran. Americans are struggling to fill their tanks, and they're now bracing for price surges all across the board. Rena Roy with that story.
I've never paid this much for gas in my entire life.
This morning, the ongoing war in Iran pushing gas prices to levels not seen in years, and experts say it could go much higher. Drivers are now paying an average of $4.41 a gallon, up from just under $3 at the start of the war. Americans across the country feeling the impacts.
I cut down on groceries a little bit. Yeah, because gas is just more of an expense now. I used to not think about it.
I choose not to drive as much. You know, it's costly. So I usually take my scooter, take public transportation.
Diesel fuel used by trucks to move goods across the country now averaging nearly $5.50 a gallon. Experts say this could drive up the cost of everyday items as Americans continue to grapple with inflation. Roughly 20 million barrels of oil pass through the Strait of Hormuz every day, and with the waterway still shut down, oil hit a wartime peak Thursday of more than $126 a barrel.
If the Strait of Hormuz continues to be blocked or significantly impeded, we could see the national average pushing closer to $4.75 or even that $5 a gallon mark by Memorial Day.
The nation's highest prices are in California, where gas now averages $6 a gallon and even more at some stations.
I'm not spending anything else on anything. It's all going to gas.
The president predicting relief will come once the war ends.
Gas will go down. As soon as the war's over, it'll drop like a rock.
But analysts say that could take some time.
We are getting into territory where even if the strait does reopen, it could be beyond a year for gas prices to fully normalize back to their pre-war levels.
Rena Roy, ABC News, New York.
Well, customers of two parcel companies may soon be getting some money back due to tariff refunds. Both FedEx and UPS said on Tuesday that they will be returning any wrongly charged tariff fees to their customers as the U.S. government begins to refund those levied monies. Thousands of companies have now filed claims through a refund system set up to allow them to collect those tariff charges. The tariff refund system went live last week. The announcement comes after the U.S. Supreme Court in February struck down President Trump's 2025 tariff charges to foreign businesses on products coming into the country under a law meant for use in national emergencies. UPS says it's already collected about $5 billion in tariffs from customers and said it's now working with Customs and Border Protection to ensure access to those refunds. Well, coming up on the second half of the newscast, it's a historic first. A freight truck completed a long journey with no driver.
No driver?
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. We'll hear all about it coming up on Good Morning Maine.
Hank's Husqvarna is your trusted full-line Husqvarna dealer, offering you everything you need for your outdoor projects. From high-performance lawn tractors and zero-turn mowers to chainsaws, trimmers, battery-powered and powerful snowblowers, we have just what you need. Every piece of equipment is fully set up, serviced, and ready for use by our certified Husqvarna technician. And all sales are backed by our in-house Husqvarna warranty. For parts, service, or new equipment sales, make your way to Hank's Husqvarna in Carmel or Newport.
Foggy's Pub, your place for fun, food, and friends in Palmyra, Maine.
The fun never stops at Wheel.
You got it! It's a car! And the crowd goes wild. A truly historic bonus round on Wheel of Fortune. Somebody could win $500,000. Where are you going? To pass out. Exciting giveaways ahead, like fabulous vacations, and let's manifest another $1 million winner. You're a millionaire. Oh my God!
Weekdays at 7 on ABC 7.
Cancer affects everyone, but there is hope. Northern Light Eastern Maine Medical Center's Champion the Cure Challenge. Make a difference for our loved ones facing cancer at Champion the Cure Challenge, where every dollar raised helps patients in our own backyard. Walk, run, or cycle August 15th. Join the motorcycle ride or car show August 16th. Take the challenge to surround family and friends in cancer treatment. Celebrate survivors, remember loved ones we've lost, and lift up our community. Join us. Visit ctcchallenge.org.
You're watching ABC 7 Bangor.
Welcome back, everyone. Today is Friday, May 1st, 2026, and this is also May Day.
May Day is a holiday celebrated by many different cultures all around the world. It's a celebration of the season of spring, a time for unity, togetherness, and rebirth. In the Middle Ages, people in English villages would dance around the maypole, which symbolized male fertility. Special baskets and wreaths were also decorated as a symbol of female fertility. Some cultures also make flower baskets or crowns to share with their loved ones.
We used to celebrate that. I don't know if they do it anymore, but when I was still in elementary school, we would make little May Day baskets and give it to our classmates and things.
I don't believe we did it in school, but I do remember doing it with my daycare lady when I was younger, and it was so fun. You make the little flower baskets, give them to your friends, and
just a nice little spring celebration.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Happy May Day, everyone. All right, time for some history. It was on this date back in 1851, the Great Exhibition opened up in London, allowing more than 6 million people to marvel at the latest innovations. The Victorian spectacle included the steam engine, the world's largest diamond, and the debut of public toilets. It was held in the Crystal Palace, a giant glass and iron hall that included more than 8 miles of tables. It would have been neat to see it.
Yes.
In 1926 on this date, the Ford factory became one of the first companies in America to adopt the 40-hour work week. And in 1931, the Empire State Building was dedicated in New York City. It was the tallest building in the world for 40 years.
And in 1961, the Soviet Union shot down an American spy plane and captured pilot Francis Gary Powers. Powers was sentenced to 10 years in prison and served nearly 2 years before he was released as part of a prisoner swap for a Soviet spy. In 1971, the National Passenger Rail Service Amtrak went into operation and is very, popular now
Going
and
strong
well
today,
used. And in 1999, SpongeBob SquarePants first premiered on Nickelodeon. And in 2011, President Barack Obama announced the death of Osama bin Laden. The terrorist leader was killed during an early morning raid in Pakistan.
Also, another little thing, we didn't have room for it in there, but today was the day that Mr. Potato Head was introduced to the public too. I don't know the year, but it was a long time ago.
Yeah.
And back then, you didn't get the little plastic potato. You had to actually take a real potato.
Wait, what?
Yeah, you know how Mr.
I
Potato
didn't
Head,
know that.
you had like the nose and everything you put on there?
Yeah.
Well, back then, you just got the nose and all that stuff.
And you did it on a real
You did
potato?
on a real potato. So I kind of like that idea,
That's
actually.
kind of fun,
So, yeah.
actually.
Little Mr. Potato Head trivia for you. All right, for birthdays today, they include country singer Tim McGraw, who is 59 today. Journalist and TV personality Abby Huntsman from The View is 40. And actor Jamie Dornan is 44 today. I asked Janessa earlier, do you know who this Jamie Dornan guy is? And she's like, yeah.
Yeah.
He was in that Grey's Anatomy series, books, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
so.
he was pretty popular there for a while, we'll say.
He's hunkalicious.
Yes.
Yeah. The ladies like him.
If Caleb's watching, no, you're not.
She doesn't like him.
I don't.
But yeah.
No.
Yeah, he's awful.
We'll turn things right back over to meteorologist Devin Biggs.
And thank you very much, Craig and Janessa. Happy Friday. Your first weather forecast brought to you by Clifton General Store. Start your morning right at Clifton General Store. Fresh coffee and hot breakfast. Family owned and operated. Alrighty, here we go. This morning we have a small craft advisory that will be expiring along the coast as wave heights will begin to back off slowly but surely. And the rain showers will begin to back off as we head throughout the morning period as well. The clouds will begin to back off throughout the morning period too. As we do move forward, there's that system right there that is tracking off towards the north and east, and that will take the rain with it too. And overall, it will be a nice day. A little bit of a breeze that we'll need to watch out for as well. Now here's Futurecast right here, taking the clouds with it, and we will be under a partly cloudy sky, and the clouds really clearing out overnight. Our next system on the way as we head towards your Saturday, some rain to the south, a little bit of snow farther off towards the north. As for the wind, reaching up to about 15 to 25 miles per hour today, backing off later on tonight. And as we head towards tomorrow, a little bit of some gusty winds. Overall, nothing too ridiculous. The hourly forecast moving forward, becoming partly cloudy today, with temperatures reaching up into the upper 50s to lower 60s. Your full 5-day forecast is coming up. Craig and Janessa.
Thank you, Devin. Well, each spring, thousands of people graduate with education degrees, but the national teacher shortage remains unaffected, leaving some school districts to get creative and ask retired teachers to return to the classroom.
ABC's Rena Roy shares what educators and experts think of this solution.
When most parents drop their kids off at school, one of the last things they worry about is whether or not there are enough teachers. But in the last decade, aided by challenges from the COVID-19 pandemic, the number of unfilled teaching positions has skyrocketed more than 6 times, with the Learning Policy Institute reporting at least 411,000 teaching positions in public schools left vacant or filled by unqualified teachers in 2024.
We've just seen a decline in the number of candidates coming out of your traditional teacher prep programs.
Senior researcher Susan Kemper-Patrick says that the larger class sizes and underqualified instructors have a negative impact on students.
There's a growing understanding that teachers are kind of the critical in-school factor that influences students' learning. I mean, anyone who's had a really great or in some cases a really terrible teacher kind of can feel that, right?
One idea gaining a lot of attention lately, asking retired teachers to return to work. Several states are introducing laws that incentivize retired teachers to return without jeopardizing their retirement benefits.
We will pay you your full salary. We will pay you an additional $7,500.
Along with incentives for retired teachers, Superintendent Dr. Major Warner Jr. says their Future Educators Academy Teachers for Tomorrow program allows high school students to graduate with a 2-year associate's degree.
You have the potential to have graduated with all of what you need to step into one of our classrooms.
But Kemper Patrick says it's likely going to take more than just a short-term stopgap to solve this issue.
The biggest solution is keeping people in the profession for longer.
That was probably one of the toughest decisions that I've ever had to make.
Jasmine Elliott, who quit her job as a teacher of 14 years in Indianapolis, says she would only consider a return to the classroom if districts provide teachers with higher pay and better resources.
I just want to say, like, the teacher shortage isn't about teachers failing students. It's about a system failing teachers. And so until that changes, students will continue to pay the price.
Rena Roy, ABC News, New York.
Well, still to come here this morning, Jack Webb with sports.
Don't go away.
Paramount Paving, Maine's go-to for all your paving and seal coating. Paramount Paving offers commercial and residential paving and seal coating services throughout eastern and central Maine. Give us a call for a free estimate today. Paramount Paving. When it comes to paving, we are Paramount.
From the heart of Maine, where rugged beauty meets timeless craftsmanship, Richard Henderson & Sons Masonry, taming the outdoors through groundwork, retaining walls and seawalls, building custom fireplaces that become the centerpiece of your home, crafting granite steps and patios that invite you outdoors, designing hardscapes that turn yards into living spaces, built to last, crafted for life. Richard Henderson & Sons Masonry, quality in every stone.
Keep your feet on the ground, they said. So many people have told you you can't. They say you don't listen. So you don't listen to them. You rise to your moment. It feels like every idea is crystal clear. It feels like every line, every angle is perfect. It feels like you are at the top of your game. And with Fidium Fiber Internet, you are.
It feels like Fidium.
Paramount Paving, Maine's go-to for all your paving and seal coating. Paramount Paving offers commercial and residential paving and seal coating services throughout eastern and central Maine. Give us a call for a free estimate today. Paramount Paving. When it comes to paving, we are Paramount.
ABC 7 and Fox 22's Jack Webb named Maine's Sportscaster of the Year by the National Sports Media Association.
Welcome back in, folks. Thanks for staying with us. We'll start with the Boston Celtics, who took on the 76ers in Game 6 on Thursday night. Celtics trying to eliminate Philadelphia. We picked this one up at the end of the first quarter. Sam Hauser's going to bang a three in transition as the C's take a lead after one frame. But here comes Philly. Paul George taking Tatum to school as he bangs the triple. 76ers up 9 at the half. First possession now of the second half. Celtics need to get something going. Well, they get a turnover from Tatum, which eventually leads to yet another Paul George triple to extend their lead. Later in the third, it's George again in transition over Tatum as this one's starting to get ugly. George had 23 points in this ballgame. Then it's going to be Tyrese Maxey's turn. He scoops it home as the 76ers stay alive. Game 7 is in Boston on Saturday, time TBD. Well, let's happily turn the page to college women's lacrosse as the Husson University Eagles are looking to make it back-to-back NAC championships this Saturday. Our Mark Sturm caught up with the team ahead of their big game against MMA.
Why not us? Again.
When you're crowned the champion in any given sport, there's only one goal the following season: to defend your title and go back-to-back. The Husson University women's lacrosse team will have that opportunity this Saturday when they take on Maine Maritime Academy in a rematch of last year's North Atlantic Conference title game. Husson tallied a 5-1 conference record during the regular season, granting the Eagles home field advantage for the title game.
I think it's just been the team, their grit, their determination every single day. They show up and they want greatness, so they're working towards that greatness.
Every day at practice we show up ready to get to work, and we all really encourage each other to do your best.
This success comes despite the loss of key starters from their championship squad. Senior Gracie Gardner credits the team's resurgence again this year to the development of their younger players.
I think a lot of sophomores have really stepped up, and I think we have a lot of first years who are really coming into their element. They've done a really great job adapting and stepping up when they need to.
The one conference loss this season, Maine Maritime Academy. The Eagles split the season series with the Mariners, and they learned plenty from both games.
We really talk about all the little things. So the little things are going to add up to be big things. So that first game was a lot of little things that added up to be really, really big things.
You know, I took away that it really is a possession game. Both of the games we've had against them, we've either won or lost by one.
With the title on the line, the Eagles understand that becoming repeat champs will require their all.
We got to play together, we got to play composed, and we need to keep possession, and we just need to play the game that we know how to play, and the game that we played last year needs to come back to this field.
Nothing short of grit and determination. Those are kind of our keywords too. We know it's going to be a tough game. It's not going to be easy, so we have to show up with a fire for all 4 quarters.
We know what to expect with this team. We have our home field advantage with all of our fans to support, and I think we'll be ready.
The NAC championship game will begin on Saturday at 4 p.m. In Bangor, Max Sturm, ABC 7 in Fox 22 Sports.
Thank you for that, Max. Good luck to the Eagles this weekend. Well, as he announced on his Instagram last week, Brewers' Ollie Higgins has made the decision to pursue his next athletic and academic chapter out of state. Higgins will be transferring to the Newman School in Boston, where he will classify to graduate in 2029, giving him an extra year of high school play. Standing at 6'10", the basketball potential is absolutely there, but he says this move is also about unlocking academic potential as well.
Just talking with my family, I think this is the best thing for me going forward, not only from a basketball standpoint, but also like an academic standpoint, and it's just the right move for me. I've always wanted to play Division I basketball. I want to play as long as I possibly can, but also like outside of that, like after I get done playing, this is a great opportunity for me to get started on something that's bigger than basketball.
Isn't out of the norm for a player to make a move out of state. As you know, Cooper and Ace Flagg made the leap after their freshman season in Nokomis, as did Bangor's Landon Clark following his sophomore year. Higgins says those guys finding success certainly makes him a little more comfortable with the move.
Absolutely, yeah, those guys are like guys that I look up to and guys who I want to be like when I'm older, so absolutely, yeah.
Some great role models he's got there. Best of luck to Ollie Higgins as he continues his journey. For now, that's all the time we have for sports. We'll be right back after the break.
Are you in need of remodeling your bathroom? Want to convert your tub into a safe walk-in shower? Call the experts at Bangor Bathrooms by Design now. They offer complete bathroom remodels, and from start to finish, your satisfaction is guaranteed. Call them now and save thousands. 659-6457. Enjoy that brand new bathroom you've always wanted from Bangor Bathrooms by Design. Transforming bathrooms, elevating lives.
Kirk Fisher is a motorcycle attorney with first responder experience. He protects fellow riders and those in danger, fighting fires and fighting for your rights. Experienced, determined, and dedicated. Iron Horse Motorcycle Lawyers. Look for motorcycles, or Kirk Fisher will be looking for you.
From the heart of Maine, where rugged beauty meets timeless craftsmanship, Richard Henderson & Sons Masonry, taming the outdoors through groundwork, retaining walls and seawalls, building custom fireplaces that become the centerpiece of your home, crafting granite steps and patios that invite you outdoors, designing hardscapes that turn yards into living spaces, built to last, crafted for life. Richard Henderson & Sons Masonry, quality in every stone.
Welcome back, everyone. In a historic first, a freight truck successfully completed a 200-mile journey without a driver.
Well, now more driverless trucks may be on the road, on the way to a road near you, but not everyone's happy about it. ABC's Andrea Fujii has more.
This morning, we've all heard about autonomous cars, but now there are autonomous trucks. Engage success. For the first time, a driverless commercial truck delivered freight, completing a 230-mile route from Houston to Dallas on time. This is time-lapse video of that drive with no one in the cab. The company, Bot Auto, argues autonomous trucks are the future. Since there are no drivers, they don't face fatigue or need brakes, reducing overall costs.
We go where sometimes humans do not want to go. I-45 is very challenging. There's a lot of traffic.
Driverless trucks are only legal in some states. California is not one of them yet, but the DMV just gave the green light to test heavy-duty autonomous vehicles, including semi-trucks on California roads. This small trucking company owner supports the technology.
If you ask any truck company what their biggest problem is, it's usually the drivers, keeping them safe and keeping them out of accidents. With automated trucks, those things are easier to deal with.
The California Teamsters Union is against the move. They plan to continue pushing for good jobs and road safety, saying the DMV's decision to rush forward with driverless heavy-duty trucks is reckless.
Clearly, though, there's drawbacks. It definitely has the potential to improve goods movement, to lower costs of moving freight, but it's going to change our workforce.
Experts say these advancements mean driverless trucks could drive 24/7.
Truck company Aurora, based in California, estimates there could be 170,000 self-driving trucks on the road by 2035, representing 15% of the U.S. trucking market. Andrea Fujii, ABC News, New York.
I think we just need to get used to it. There's going to come a time we'll have pilotless planes, all that kind of stuff.
It's so crazy to imagine.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for flying cars. When I was a kid, I thought we'd have flying cars by now.
I would think so too. Yeah, it was a big thing back then to kind of think about that.
Yeah.
Well, now here's meteorologist Devin Biggs with our full weather forecast.
Alrighty, Craig and Janessa, thank you very much. Your full weather forecast brought to you by Clifton General Store. Start your morning right at Clifton General Store. Fresh coffee and hot breakfast. Family owned and operated. Alrighty, here we go this morning. A small craft advisory will be expiring along the coast as we watch for wave heights that will be backing off. For now, they're still a little bit active at around 5 feet. So overall, we're seeing some improvement with contours starting to decrease to the north and east. Farther out towards sea, still active at around 6 to 8 feet. So that's courtesy of that system that's moving to the north and east. Meanwhile, on land, we still have some rain showers developing this morning. This is all tracking off to the north and east with that area low pressure that will be moving away. So we are going to be seeing some improvement today as the sky becomes partly cloudy and temperatures warm up into the lower 60s. So it's another system off toward the west that will move in our direction. Now will give us some more rain showers as we head towards tomorrow. So let's break this all down with Futurecast. So clouds breaking up today. We'll call it partly cloudy with the sun coming out. Temperatures making it into the lower 60s. Mostly clear tonight. Temperatures falling. For tomorrow, clouds move in. Rain showers to the south. Some snow possible across the northern parts of the state. We'll keep that rain shower action going through most of Saturday. And then even by Saturday night, still some on and off rain showers. And that even continues as we head towards our Sunday. So I'm going to keep the rainfall forecast going even as we head through Tuesday. And some decent rainfall at that, around a half an inch to 3/4 of an inch possible before this all begins to back off. So new drought monitor came out and some improvement in some spots, and it got worse in a few others too. So it's a mixed bag. So overall, great to see some improvement, but we definitely don't want it to get worse in other areas either. So for today, partly cloudy and breezy, low 60s for the high, northwest wind at about 20 miles per hour. Overnight, mostly clear, low 30s for the overnight low, and the wind overall looking nice and calm. And then for tomorrow, mostly cloudy, rain showers with highs in the low 50s, and that south wind getting up to around 20 miles per hour. And let's check out your extended forecast. We have rain likely Sunday with highs in the mid-40s. Partly cloudy, a chance for rain showers Monday, back in the low 60s for the high. Upper 60s Tuesday, chance for showers and thunderstorms.
Roto-Rooter has served the greater Bangor area and beyond for 35 years, offering plumbing, hydrojetting, snaking, descaling, video inspection, and grease interceptor cleaning services. For all your residential and commercial clogs, call Roto-Rooter today, 990-1234.
And away go troubles down the drain. Roto-Rooter.
There's a reason you see Gravely mowers on so many commercial landscaping trailers. Pros don't choose equipment by accident. They choose what holds up. To get the day-in, day-out performance you demand at home, step up to a Gravely. The Gravely Mow Like a Pro sales event is here. Save up to $250 on select Gravely zero-turn mowers. Mow like a pro with Gravely. Visit your local Gravely dealer today.
Only at Glen Burn Landscape and Supply Company, where great backyards begin.
Diabetes isn't a death sentence, but it is absolutely a life sentence, and you have to figure out how you're going to keep your kid alive. So when you find somebody from the government that's on your side, and it happens to be Susan Collins at the same time, that was just magnificent. After the meeting in Portland for my wife and son, my wife came back. She was 10 feet tall. She'd felt seen, she felt heard, and she felt like we had a powerful advocate on our side. No, it was a big step towards healing.
Thank you, Senator Collins.
Please continue delivering for T1 families.
Pat's Pizza in Holden is not just a restaurant that serves delicious food and pizza. They also have an adjacent party and event room. Consider having your birthday or office party at Pat's Pizza. They have indoor golf, a pro shop, and a beautiful 9-hole golf course open for the season. Pat's Pizza, Holden.
This is a case that's got everybody holding their breath.
An explosion pushed out the front of the building.
Tonight, secrets will be revealed.
You didn't know. We didn't know.
They were dealing with a monster.
2020 on ABC and stream on Disney Plus and Hulu.
A beloved local celebrity makes waves in San Francisco. Meet Chonkers, a massive sea lion spotted this week lounging around other noticeably smaller California sea lions neighbors. Several gathered at Fisherman's Wharf on Thursday to see the large marine mammal. Boy, he is massive. Who experts say belongs to the Steller species, the largest of all sea lions. Adult Steller sea lions can weigh up to a ton, and marine officials say they usually live in colder waters off the North Pacific and off the coast of Alaska. But not Chonkers. Chonkers has grown a large following among the local tourists, attracting several admirers and even local artists looking to capture the sea lion's enormity.
Like a Volkswagen, he's so huge. I was like stunned. Yeah, I was out here last night and there was like a bunch of people. He wasn't here and everybody's like, you'll know when you see him. And I was like, will I know? I definitely did.
Well, marine specialists say the highly popular sea lion may just be making a rest stop in San Francisco, taking advantage of an abundant food supply before traveling back to colder Alaskan waters.
Aww.
He's huge.
Yeah, he is. Well, a deputy in Indiana responds to a call of animals on the road. The animals had escaped a farm in Grant County, northeast of Indianapolis, and it was a variety of animals, including cows, ducks, turkeys, and goats. The deputy managed to round them all up and then get them back to the farm.
Oh my goodness.
That's a lot.
Usually it's like one or two, maybe a handful. This is the whole farmyard.
Like 30.
Yeah.
Well, that's all the time that we have left for this morning, but you can join us for the second hour of Good Morning Maine. That's next on Fox 22.
Thanks for being there, everyone. We hope you have a wonderful day.
ABC 7, Fox 22.
It's calling you back, showing up on time, and treating you like a person, not a problem. So whether you're working, streaming, gaming, or all three, it is time to make the switch to a provider that actually tries. Go NetSpeed. Service isn't dead. It just moved local.
Who has the best kept secret in Penobscot County?
We do!
Welcome to Maple Lane Farms, a fifth-generation family farm that's committed to providing you with the best quality products. Our farm-raised local and sustainable meat is flash frozen to lock in the freshness and natural flavors. Experience the top-notch quality of our meat that's naturally raised without any antibiotics or hormones. Get the best of both worlds, quality and affordability. Try Maple Lane Farms today, the candy store for the carnivore.
Collectors, get ready! Maine Hobby Fest, hosted by Coastal Sports Collectibles, is coming Saturday, May 2nd from 9 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. at the Brewer Auditorium. With over 60 vendors, you'll find sports cards, Pokemon, trading card games, collectibles, memorabilia, and more, all under one roof. Enter raffles for Maine Celtics box seats and Savannah Bananas tickets. Sign up for a live 3-case football break and meet former Red Sox pitcher Bill the Spaceman Lee signing autographs. Admission just $1. Don't miss Maine Hobby Fest, May 2nd at Brewer Auditorium, 318 Wilson Street. Learn more at coastalsportscollectibles.com.
I know that you're sitting right in front of me, but can I say hi to Douglas?
Obviously.
Hey, gorgeous. Hi, Douglas.
Douglas is making this interview super fun. When I rescued him, he was 8 weeks old.
I'm being licked right now.
Dougie's really the star.
Where does the dog go after the show?
My house.
Weekdays at 11 on Fox 22.
Good Morning Maine on WFVX, Fox 22. From the Great Northwoods to the Rockbound Coast and streaming live in HD worldwide at foxbangor.com. More people choose Good Morning Maine.
Hello, everyone. Today on Good Morning Maine, Governor Mills made the decision to suspend her campaign for U.S. Senate. We'll hear what her opponent, Graham Plattner, had to say coming up.
Plus, a teenager charged in connection with the murder of a paddleboarder last summer is now considered competent to stand trial.
And the VZ Community School robotics team traveled to Houston, Texas to compete on a national stage. Good morning and welcome to Good Morning Maine. I'm Janessa Bishop.
And I'm Craig Colson. Thank you for joining us on this Friday morning. Happy Friday, everyone. We'll have those stories and more coming up. Later on, we'll have a guest from the Coal Land Transportation Museum.
Yeah.
Today is opening day at the museum.
There's a cool event going on
yeah,
too,
the
right?
night at the museum is one of them. They've got a busy season ahead.
So fun.
We'll hear all about that a little later on in the program. But first, to check of the forecast.